Brickyard Live Show. We are back, and this is the best show on the internet, whether you're talking about food, movies, sports. We got you covered from the NBA to the NFL, suddenly the WNBA. At this point, now that it's summer, a little bit of baseball, but we are here. We're going to be predicting every single game for the NFC South today. We're going to be going over the NBA Finals with some other news, but most importantly, the best top five and the worst top five, according to the Brickyard, are back this week. It's been the segment everyone has been dying for more of. So we're going to be here and then tell our audience the parameters of our best five and our worst five today. What's going to be going on?
So we've talked about the best and worst fast food burgers. We've talked about a whole bunch of other best top fives. Today we're doing the top five and worst top five fast food chains. This is companies like Applebee's and Chili's and Olive Garden and Cheesecake Factory. The list goes on. If this company has over 200 locations, they qualify to make this list. So worst and best food chains according to the Brickyard. And this time we're switching it around. I am doing the best of the best, and he is doing the worst of the worst. And what is going to be an epic showdown of what is the best and what is the worst in the food chain gang.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the seagull. I guess I'm just feeling a little bit salty today. And, I have an honorable mention for number 6, and I kind of would have put this one on the list if it still existed, but it's so bad that it's out of business. Like, Bertucci's, what a
Oh,
fall
yeah.
off. You went from like an Italian restaurant that used to be busy all the time to last time I had Bertucci's, it was literally cold. Like, they didn't even microwave it long enough. And not only that, when they were trying to save their restaurant, what did they do? They partnered with a chef of Food Network fame by the name of Christian Petroni, and he literally ruined it. And all he does is add Parmesan cheese and a ton of butter to everything he makes. He is a top tier grub, and they're like, let's go ahead and get this guy to come save Bertucci's. But just because I get cold food from this place once and they're now out of business, dancing on their grave a little bit. So honorable mention for this list, Bertucci's. At number 5, I can't put this any higher because it's almost so bad that it's good, and people have so many fun memories at this place. And if you don't think COVID was funded by Fauci or came out of a wet market in China, you may think it came from Chuck E. Cheese. Because Chuck E. Cheese, I mean, where do we start? You'll probably find a diaper in the ball pit or something. It is one of the most disease ridden places. And then this is a new trend with like breweries and other restaurants, but let's get all of the parents drunk to drive the kids home. So you have like Chuck E. Cheese, kids running around screaming anywhere. The food sucks. It's probably all frozen and is going to give you cancer if you eat every day there for the next 5 years. And then they're also giving the parents Bud Lights at 10 a.m. It's absolute madness. And, if you don't think COVID came from a lab, you don't think it came from a Chinese wet market, it definitely came from Chuck E. Cheese, or that's where you get hand, foot, and mouth disease. So make sure you take care of that shit. So at number 5, Chuck E. Cheese. At number 4, this one kind of just pissed me off. And as I was researching it, is one of the ones I kept seeing it come up a lot, but Bobby's Burgers. And it's so disappointing because it's coming from none other than Chef Bobby Flay. He has a national burger chain called Bobby's Burgers, and everyone seems to hate it worse than Wahlburgers. And if you're gonna put your name on something, you're an Iron Chef. You have like 5, 6, 7. How many shows on Food Network does this guy have? But he doesn't give a shit about his burgers. It's an average burger. It's just an okay restaurant where you can go in, rake in some money, have an overpriced burger, and he knows people are gonna go there. Oh, I love Bobby Flay, so I'm gonna go to Bobby's Burgers. We saw him on TV. Maybe that means the chain restaurant that he just slapped his name on is actually going to be a good restaurant. So no, at number 4, we have Bobby's Burgers. At number 3, we're getting into the microwave territory here. Applebee's. Does Applebee's own a fryer? Do they own an oven? Do they own a salamander? Do they own any sort of cooking devices other than a fucking microwave? It would be better if they just air fried everything. It's like, what are you giving me? Everything tasted like they just defrosted it 20 minutes ago as soon as they knew your order, like, oh shit, we meant to defrost that earlier. And then they just has to microwave it. And it's just one of those places that doesn't do anything particularly well, especially when you compare their business model to Chili's. You at least get endless chips there. You can eat there for like $15. You're in, you're out, no problem. But Applebee's, it's just like, what is Applebee's? And same with number 2, TJ Fridays. You can't put your name, you can't put Friday on something which people associate as, oh, Friday's the best day of the week. I'm heading into the weekend. It's so fun. And then TGA Fridays is just pandering to old people who get lunch at 2 in the afternoon. Like, your literal crowd and target audience is 70-year-olds who get dinner at 3:30 in the afternoon. Because can you tell me anything of note on TGA Fries menu? I've eaten there a couple times and I immediately forgot as soon as I went there. So at number 2, TGA Fridays, because you can't have your Friday on something if you don't do anything unique at all and you're just a bland senior brunch place. So
Especially
number
on
2,
Friday, by the
TGA
way.
Fridays.
They don't do anything on Friday either, by the way. No specials. You would think they would.
No, no specials on Friday either. So that's another hit to TGA Fridays. At number 1, we're still in the microwave territory. Another place that made me sick on Christmas Eve. I had a gift card to go to Olive Garden, and this absolute third world, it's offensive to the third world to call Olive Garden a third world restaurant. This is a homeless restaurant, if that could even be possible with Olive Garden. I mean, where do you start? The breadsticks taste like frozen breadsticks. It doesn't taste authentic, and you're literally just eating ready to go meals that you would buy at the freezer at HEB, Market Basket, Shaw's, Savers, wherever you search. Except no, it's like one of the frozen meals that you would get at Dollar General at that point. And people are like, oh, Olive Garden, so classy. Like, Olive Garden is just where a impoverished middle class family wants to go out to a nice dinner because, ooh, look at the fun plant over there. But they probably water down their drinks too. They also do not uphold to the liquor laws and standards of this great country in America. I remember going to Applebee's lying about forgetting my ID as a 20-year-old as a complete degenerate, and they're like, it's okay, I do this all the time. And they went and got me a beer anyways. So at number 1, because they break the law, Olive Garden.
I'm so glad you put Olive Garden. I was so nervous that you were going to miss that one. Olive Garden is fucking egregious. If I had my worst top 5, it would be number 1 through 5. Every time I've had Olive Garden, it's been an absolute pit in my stomach for days following it. Every time I've had it, I've gotten food poisoning. Olive Garden is fucking atrocious. And if you like Olive Garden, you're a pussy.
No, Olive Garden is so bad it literally makes Italians want to join the Nazis again.
Yes. Axis powers reforming because of Olive Garden.
Literally.
But it's time to get a glass half full. It's time to look at what is the best upper echelons, best sit-down chain restaurants that the world has to offer. I'm going to have an honorable mention here and shout out a better place than Olive Garden, similar aspect, Carrabba's. If you want to get that type of Italian restaurant, Carrabba's, they give you bread with oil. It's a little bit more authentic, and it's just a good time. It's cheap, good place to go. For those who have taste buds, Carrabba's is the much better solution. If you like Olive Garden, you're probably some dumb white bitch from Ohio. Now, getting into the top 5. When I make my top 5, part of it has to do with the food. The other part of it has to do with the vibe, okay? The echelons of this place. And at number 5, this place, I wouldn't say their food is out of this world, but you just have memories there. You've witnessed, whether it is playoff games, whether it is NBA Finals games, Buffalo Wild Wings has to be at number 5. Is it because Buffalo Wild Wings has the best wings in the world? No. In fact, they actually do the same thing that Olive Garden does to my stomach. But with the boys together, with a few brews, with some wings, you go on a BOGO deal. B-Dubs has a place in my heart. They would feel wrong for me not to put it at number 5. At number 4, a burger spot that I feel like is underrated in this circle. Place that deserves a bit of a shout out. How about Red Robin at number 4? Is it the best burger in America? No. But is it a damn good burger for where it is all around the country? Shit ton of locations. You get whether it's a breakfast burger, you get a chili burger. And how about bottomless steak fries? Something that is unmatched in today's time.
And floats too. Bottomless root beer floats.
and bottomless root beer floats. So therefore, Red Robin deserves to be appreciated because I feel like it's an underappreciated food chain in America. At number three, you're getting a little bit more ritzy here. You're getting a little bit fancier. You want a nice steak, but you don't want to spend nice steak money. You go to a place like Longhorns. You get some bread, you get some butter, you get some steak. The steak's going to be like $15 when normally it would be like 40. Maybe it's not even steak that you're eating, but at the end of the day, nice, classy place, or at least classy enough for these fast food restaurants. Go there with your older lady and have a good time. At number two, I don't know if this place is considered in the same echelons of these places, but it is a national chain for breakfast. That is a place that you can go there either at 2 a.m. or 7 a.m. How about the great International House of Pancakes? That's right. How about fucking IHOP? Okay. We have memories there from 10 a.m. all the way until 4 a.m. when we probably shouldn't even be out in public because we are too intoxicated. We might be saying gamer words that are not allowed to be said in public, but we say it anyways. But IHOP, lots of memories there. Great pancakes. They have good food outside of breakfast, by the way, if you want to try something else there. But IHOP, great place and deserves to be shouted out. At number one, this place is great because it has variety. If I want to get fucking sushi, if I want to get burgers, if I want to get cheesecake, I can go to Cheesecake Factory. It's a little bit more on the higher end of these fast food chain or these sit down restaurants, but you can get anything there. Their menu's massive. They have a whole bunch of different options. Their menu, I think, offers like 300 different things. It's a little bit on the pricier side, but you want to take a girl there and press them. You take them to Cheesecake Factory. Maybe it's not going to wow their socks off, but at the end of the day, it's good food, good vibes, good atmosphere. Cheesecake Factory number one.
Yeah, I mean, Cheesecake Factory's definitely a decision at number one. I feel like they definitely do have a nice interior, and it's funny. Like, I don't know how many of them you have in Phoenix, but like we have like a couple in Texas, but like in the Northeast, Cheesecake Factory was like you couldn't get in
Big
there. You
ticket.
had to like make a reservation like a week in advance. It used to be like a hot ticket item, especially when they're in their prime there. And then as far as like having a big menu though, like I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. They do some things well, but I feel like generally most of their menu is bad and it kind of just tastes like the Tyson like chicken that you get in like the frozen bags. But the cheesecake on the other hand is worth it. It's just I've never eaten the cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory because I'm so full by the time dinner's over because they give you such a massive portion.
So I will say I've been to Cheesecake Factory 3 times, and each time I've had Cheesecake Factory, what I got there was good, and it, honestly, above what I would have at an Applebee's or Chili's or any of those chains. So the Cheesecake Factory has been good to me, and therefore I will be good to Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned IHOP though because IHOP is so good for no reason. And I know it's probably not good. And I know it shouldn't be good, but like it just is. It's just one of those great places, like one of the last great places that's open 24 hours and something you rarely get. I think society really ended when Walmart closed. Like they used to be open 24 hours, but like going to Walmart at like 2 a.m. on like Christmas Eve when everyone's asleep to like go buy presents or like walking around and just seeing like the absolute like tweakers that are there or like the zombies that are out there like who just got out of their third shift who are there at like 4 a.m. It's like I feel like that's really when society went wrong, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I almost thought about Waffle House, but I feel like IHOP is a classier Waffle House, a little less ratchet. And Denny's just doesn't compare to IHOP. IHOP just has better food all around. So it just felt like if I'm going to include a chain diner, I got to include IHOP because everywhere, no matter where you are, it feels like when you step into an IHOP, you're stepping into just a portal into. You can literally just name the state, and it feels like you're in that state. I went there a couple months back, had a few drinks in me, and I felt like I was back in New Hampshire. And then I turn around and I feel like I'm back in Texas. Like no matter where you are, like IHOP is just a portal to another dimension. It feels like.
Yeah, no, it really is. I feel like yeah, IHOP's good. But yeah, it's like just one of those like kind of magical places. So I'm glad you put it on the list there.
And that is our best and worst top five food chains in America. Let us know what to do next with our best and worst top fives. With cheesecake taking the spot.
Yeah, but we had the NBA Finals continue, and it's taking forever. It's been going on for like 2 months, it feels like. But the NBA Finals is still going on, and where we left you was the Pacers being up 2-1. They are now down 3-2. They've lost 2 games in a row with a controversial game three where the Pacers are kind of in control of it, and then Scott Foster decides to extend and start blowing his whistle, except where when SGA does his best Michael Jordan impression, pushes off, and then takes 4 steps. And then, there's been a lot of talk in the series about Rick Carlisle this, Rick Carlisle that. Oh my God, isn't Rick Carlisle such an underrated coach? But if you're such a great coach, answer me this. Halliburton was doing absolutely nothing. He was compromised in game four. Looks like he had a supposed calf injury coming into the game and aggravated it early on. But TJ McConnell is putting up buckets, and he's the only one putting up buckets on your team. So, why, if you're this great coach, would you bench Halliburton for the guy who brought you all the way back to within two? It was a 2 point game, and then suddenly OKC just extended it to 13 points when McConnell was the one really keeping you in the game anytime you needed a bucket. Like, how can everyone say, oh my God, what a great coach, you get the Pacers to the finals, and then you make such a massive error when Halliburton can't even get a shot off because he's so injured?
Yeah, and you were talking about game five, right? I just want to make sure we're talking about
Game
last game,
five,
right? Yeah,
last game.
Halliburton looked like a complete mess. I definitely think he's dealing with some sort of injury. Couldn't make a shot to save his life. And then meanwhile, you have TJ McConnell, who I believe had like what, 20 points, 18 points, it looks like. Um, but for me, yeah, I I don't know where I put my finger on this. You had a couple of stats about Scott Foster, like extending the series. I guess like this is a game where I felt like OKC began to take control. Their defense was stepping up. They had Pascal Siakam had 6 turnovers in this game. Do you think that after game five that ultimately this will be wrapped up in six at this point? Or do you see this still going seven potentially?
I think it still should go 7. And I feel like for Oklahoma City, you definitely want them to win on your floor. And then we also haven't had an NBA Finals go 7 games since I believe 2016 when LeBron beat the Warriors. And pretty much every other series has been a sweep. But if Halliburton isn't 100%, I feel like if you start McConnell the whole game, you should have enough where if you're at home, like game five was close at some points, and that was with SGA having over 30 points and Jalen Williams dropping a 40 ball. And then also in game five, that was the best I've ever seen Chet Holmgren play in my life. And I know he didn't score a lot of points, but defensively, Chet Holmgren was having an impact on that game. He was getting tough defensive plays. He was getting really good rebounds. And then you have Jalen Williams turn into an absolute superstar. I mean, he looked like Dwayne Wade in that game where he's just going off, putting up 40 points, and then you have SGA putting up 31. So I feel like you really got Oklahoma City's best punch in the shooting, and their bench hasn't translated on the road. So look for like a big Miles Turner and Obi Toppin game because I think they should have won game four. And that was definitely a game where, yeah, we did have an issue with the ref here, but I also felt like the Pacers gave that game away. Their offense was kind of just frantic at the end of it. It wasn't too decisive, but yeah, you should be able to get at least one game where you limit the turnovers here. If not, this finals is starting to remind me a lot if they lose on Thursday of that Celtics and Warriors finals where the Celtics went up 2-1, Warriors figured it out, and then the Pacers do exactly what the Celtics did in that finals, which is what? Just turn the ball over every play. Doesn't it feel like watching the Celtics in that finals run in 2022 when they're just turnover, 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 drive into traffic, everyone collapses. It's like it's so predictable too.
And it's frustrating too because throughout the entire playoff run, they were one of the most efficient teams in all of basketball. They weren't turning over the ball. Like Halliburton was having, what he had, that 35, 15, and 10 game with no turnovers. And then we go into this series. I give credit to OKC and having a great game plan, and they've been great defensively all postseason. But like at the end of the day, like Pacers, where are your adjustments? Like you got to know that this is coming at this point. You've played 5 games at this point. You're 1 game away from being eliminated at this point. Like you would think that there would be proper adjustments made, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to adjust to the game plan with the Thunder. But I like that comparison. I definitely think it's a valid comparison. I'd like to think the Pacers figure it out next game though, because they seem to be better at home and with
Yeah.
adversity on them.
And the Thunder are a lot better at home too. Like Jalen Williams does not play like that on the road. But honestly, like I picked the before I knew Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler were going to be a tandem and together in the playoffs. I thought that the Thunder were going to make the finals, and that was my prediction after the season ended last year. And it was because of Jalen Williams, and that's exactly the player I saw the potential for him to turn into this playoffs. And like, hats off to Jalen Williams because everyone's going to be talking about, is Halliburton a superstar? Does this like annul like everything great that Halliburton has done in the playoffs this year? Like, first of all, no, it doesn't. And then Jalen Williams should be what everyone is talking about today, where he's the one who just turned the level all the way up to make them a championship team. Not only did you add veteran leadership with Caruso just hustling everywhere, being that grit and glue guy, along with Hartenstein being able to play two bigs, but like just Jalen Williams turning into not just like a legitimate two, but a guy who's like pressing on potentially being a one for another team in this league if he keeps this up for another year or two. Like if you're gonna have to pay SGA close to 300 million, like someone is gonna give you a monumental offer for Jalen Williams if you ever have to part with him, because you might have to choose between Jalen Williams and Chet.
Yeah, and honestly, if I had to pick today, I would pick Jalen Williams. Honestly, like with Chet's been great defensively for them. I'm curious, like I definitely think there's another gear that Chet can go, but I've had moments in this series and really throughout the playoffs where I felt like Chet has looked small for his size. So I definitely think
Mm.
he needs to add some weight. But Jalen Williams, as far as like the scorer that he's capable of being, him paired with SGA and what he's able to bring to the table, I definitely think that Jalen Williams is the guy that they're going to probably pick over Chet because I feel like Chet is more replaceable than Jalen Williams at this place, especially with how many picks they have and who they can potentially replace Chet with ultimately.
Yeah, and also like as far as like him and Jalen Williams, like I want to say this with Jalen Williams too. Like you could probably put together a compilation of the playoffs of him going up in the air and falling on his back, and me just holding my breath every time. Like how many times have you just been watching these games and you're like, when
Jalen
he's
Williams
up
gets
in the
hurt.
air, and then you have Doris Burke. Oh my, look at her! Look at him in the air like that falling. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's the opposite with Chet, where every time someone touches him, I think he's going to be like, "Ooh, career-ending injury here," and I think he will get better when he puts on some muscle. And I think Game 5 was his best game because that was the first time he actually looked assertive defensively, and it looked like he actually had some fire that lit, and it was like one of the best games I've seen from him. They don't necessarily need him to be a scorer, which is nice. Like if he gets you 18 points a game but turns into a monster defensively, that's really all you can ask for because you're going to be going up against Wemby for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. Plus, you also have SGA and Jalen Williams that can get a bucket. Really, Chet's just going to be the defensive and offensive rebound guy. And then obviously, what he can do on the defensive end is going to be impressive. You need Chet to contain the Wembys of the world, the Jokers of the world, the Giannis's of the world, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, if that's what his role is, then ultimately that's what it's going to be. But they still have a short win, like they still have a decent enough window where they don't need to make that decision right away. It's just when all these guys need to get paid, that's when they're going to have to make that big decision. But with Chet, I believe that's at least another 2 years away. And same with Jalen Williams.
Also, too, like if you watch like mainstream media, you would think the Thunder don't have a coach because like the Pacers got to the finals. All we heard about was how great Rick Carlisle is, and everyone was worshiping Rick Carlisle. Is he the greatest coach since Greg Popovich for getting this team to a finals? Like they have a bunch of scrubs on the roster, but then you have Mark Daigneault on this team who quietly just leads this team to a 68 win record. I believe he won Coach of the Year last year. And then, correct me if I'm wrong. And then he also has a defensive plan where he's stifled the best offense in the league, and he's turned them all into turnover machines where the Pacers are playing like out of character, and he's been able to take advantage of what they do the best, where he's turning that pace that they play with into turnovers and kind of using that against them. And they really haven't been able to solve for just being like everyone just collapsing on the ball. They protect the paint, but they're one of those teams that as soon as they crash, they're able to rotate and get back very quickly. So like I feel like he's done a really good job in just again Sam Presti for building this Thunder team again. Like after you had Paul George, after you had the KD Thunder, like the fact that SGA and Jalen Williams are going to be the duo that gets it done, and SGA is probably going to have a more impressive finals victory than Kevin Durant ever did because KD jumped ship to the Warriors and was playing with the best player in the league at the time. Like I feel like Mark Daigneault has not gotten enough credit, and it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, especially with everything you mentioned, 68 wins. I want to shout out Sam Presti as well because I feel like it speaks to the Oklahoma City Thunder's just total ownership group. The fact that most of the time when you have someone like Sam Presti who's been there for 20 years, you would think that, especially with the failure that they had not winning that title with the big three, Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, that they would have moved on, gone a different direction. But the fact that they stayed the course, they traded away Westbrook, they traded away everybody else, and then was able to turn into the SGAs, the Jalen Williams, the Chet Holmgrens, tanking properly, like tanking the right way, where they're able to get all these great players, adding the Lou Dort to the world, adding the Carusos, adding the Hartensteins, which is ultimately why they're here where they are. Like credit to Sam Presti and then credit to their coach. Like this team has, I believe it's the sixth most wins in NBA history, and they're well on. I mean, they're one game away from the finals. No matter what happens, they've had an insane season. SGA, the development that he's had as well. Because let's not forget, like he came from the Clippers, and we always knew that he was going to be like a solid, good player. But we didn't think that SGA, like at least I didn't think SGA was going to turn into this superstar MVP level, James Harden scoring production level numbers that he's turned into. And I feel like that's got to be credit to him as well.
Yeah, and then also the thing where people don't talk about SGA too, and why I think he could inevitably be better than Harden all time is just his defense as well. Because he like plays very similar to Kobe, plays very similar to Michael as far as their play style. Um, but and mostly I'm just comparing his mid-range game because he has one of the best mid-ranges in the NBA right now, and he's like a similar player to Kawhi, but just the fact that he can go out there and be an elite defender, and he's really long too, especially at the point guard position. So that's definitely a luxury to have SGA there as well. So we will see what happens in Game 6, but with this finals here. There's some interesting things. This is the first final since 2006 where we could have a unique NBA champion. So since 2006, I believe that was the first finals that the Mavericks made it to, where this will be the first time a team won the NBA championship. So that's definitely interesting. It'll also be the first. If SGA wins Finals MVP, it'll be the first Finals since the 2012-2013 season that the MVP won the Finals and the MVP award. So almost the first time in over a decade.
Why do you think it is that it's been basically 15 years that the MVP is going to win their first title? Like, because I remember, like, I mean, Steph was super close in 2016, and then Kevin Durant was close in 20. I think 2015, the Thunder made it to the conference finals, if I'm not mistaken. But why do you think it is like the fact that it's been? I think it's going to be 14 years now that it's gone since they've won. Like MVP has won the finals ultimately.
I would say first is voter fatigue. And then second would be if you have to be that dominant to put up those type of numbers in the regular season, you're probably going to burn out by the time the finals come around because you obviously don't have enough help.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I feel like a lot of these MVPs too. Like we have Harden. I think all these people that I'm listing are going to be people who are worthy of MVP. But like James Harden, he was getting stubbed constantly by Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. He was putting on one of the greatest scoring outputs we've ever seen. I felt like his MVPs, they felt like they needed to award him that MVP. And then, we had Russell Westbrook's triple double year where it felt like, especially with the narrative, they gave it to him. And then Joel Embiid, another guy that was one of the better big mans in the NBA, was getting snubbed with Joker winning 3 of the last 4. They give him an MVP. I feel like you nailed it.
Giannis
Kind of looked like
IQ.
the voter fatigue. A lot of these MVPs, it felt like were winning the MVP because they've been good for a long period of time, but didn't get their proper dues.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going away from the best player on the best team mentality. Kind of like you have to have a historically great season along with having a historically great team. And the thing with SGA is, while him and Jalen Williams are the only two like dominant scorers on that team, they have a lot of shooters. They just randomly get crazy hot. I mean, you have like a guy in Wallace who hits his first three in the finals, and then he ends up basically going perfect that game. You have Lou Dort putting up big numbers who can get hot. You have the other Jalen Williams off the bench, and then it's just the fact that you've built this team around defense as well, and they all fit together perfectly. Because the other thing I'll say about this is the first finals since 2003 that both teams in the finals didn't pay a luxury tax. And you know what happened in 2003? The salary cap.
Oh wow. So 2003 was the Spurs, right? I think it was the Spurs and Nets, if I'm not mistaken. That's
I
insane.
believe so. Them, yeah.
That sounds right. I know it's definitely the Spurs that won. I just forget who they were facing then. So first time since 2003 that neither team has to have a luxury tax. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Like while they're in the finals. So like the Warriors had to pay a massive luxury tax when they were getting to the finals. The Miami Heat obviously were having to pay a massive luxury tax, but this is the first NBA finals matchup where neither team is in the luxury tax.
That's good for the sport, honestly. And I feel like we're moving closer towards this being, I wouldn't say a norm, but more of a norm. Where like we're going to see teams like the Pacers, especially with OKC and the Pacers both making the finals, seeing more teams built that way. Okay, we have a superstar. We're going to build around them via the draft. We're going to be patient. We're not going to rush. We're not going to go after, you know, we have Devin Booker. We're not going to trade for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. It's we're leaving the super team era. We're building it around just total cohesive team again, which I'm excited for. I feel like we're likely to see this again in the near future, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely like that. And then, you had like LeBron today too talking about like I don't know why like ring culture is such a big deal when I feel like LeBron invented ring culture. Like as far as like the ring chasing culture, like I felt like he was the main culprit for ushering in that era. Like what do you mean? That's like Tupac saying like I don't get what the big deal with rap is. Or or not like Tupac, but like Ice Cube NWA, it's like, why do people like rap so much? It's like, what do you mean? You literally exploded the entire genre and ushered in a new era. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't think he created ring culture. I think the ring chasing era, there's been people in the past prior to LeBron, but he was the one that's like, okay, Dwayne Wade, you sign this contract. Chris Bosh, you sign this contract. I'll join you and we'll all join forces. And then that caused, players like Kevin Durant, obviously, is the prime example. We have the Paul George of the world. And there's a bunch of other examples that we can include, whether, I know I'm forgetting a bunch of others, but those are the main. I feel like those are the main culprits. Teams that were deliberately stacked together to win a title, and a lot of these guys failed. Another one we could use is the Nets potentially, but the Nets failed so miserably that we don't even use them as an example. But the idea of stacking a bunch of talent together without the cohesive team building aspect of it is part of the reason why. It's because of the ring culture. LeBron didn't win a ring his first 7 years in Cleveland, so he goes and basically buys his rings in Miami, and they win 2 rings. He gets what he needs. Goes to Cleveland, gets his ring there. But the whole time, him hopping around. The reason why he went to L.A. as well was because Cleveland was getting old. He went to L.A. to win a ring with Anthony Davis. Like he's like the culprit of the ring chase era ultimately.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't be surprised by it when people are like, why are people so obsessed with it? Like, what do you mean? Like, every time you didn't have a team good enough to win a championship, you left. What is that called? What are you chasing when you do that? Like, and it's fine. It's just don't be like, oh, where'd this come from? Like, you know exactly where it came from. But the NBA also does that when they're afraid a series is going to end too soon. They literally have a ref, a referee in professional sports, Scott Foster, named the extender. And there's been a lot of conversation around Scott Foster and then everyone letting their opinion be heard because, I'm finding out not a lot of people like the Thunder this year. or SGA because they think they get an unfair whistle this year. So I did some research on Scott Foster, and there's some interesting statistics about Scott Foster. Do you know what happened in 2006 to 07?
No.
It was the Tim Donaghy scandal. And
Oh,
Tim Donaghy and Scott Foster had over 134 short calls, which is way more than he had called any other ref. 134 times he talked to Scott Foster. So he was pretty much talking to this guy every other day. He talked to him more than any other ref by a mile. The next closest was like 50 something calls. And then Scott Foster and Tim Donaghy are out here pretty close, buddy going through the whole gambling scandal. Not only that, he has a notorious reputation where Chris Paul himself, who's the president of the Players Association, has said he's a company man, as well as Rasheed Wallace. Steph Curry and Steve Kerr have also had issues with him. And when a team is down 0-3 and Scott Foster referees, the team down 0-3 is 5-11, which is a 45% win percentage when the average win percentage for a team down 0-3 is 36%. What about teams down 3-2? Well, teams down 3-2 are 19-3 when Scott Foster refs.
19-3.
19-3.
What the fuck? So okay, so the 3-0-1, I don't think there's anything crazy, but the 3-2, 19-3 when he referees a game 6, the opposing team. So is he?
Yeah.
The real question is he doing that for game? Is he going to be game 6? Do we know that yet?
I don't think so, but the Pacers have not won a game that he's refed.
That's not a good sign. Well, I mean, if he is ultimately reffing, maybe they break the curse there. But Jesus Christ, that's suspicious to me. Is there any other Scott Foster facts?
So that's like the majority of it, because like I thought like even 0-3, like you're still like 10% above the median for 0-3. So there's clearly something there where you're helping rig the game. But 19-3 for teams down 3-2 in the NBA playoffs for Scott Foster, and then he called Tim Donaghy 134 times during 06 to 07 when the entire gambling referee mafia scandal was going on. You don't think that's a little bit suspicious that he's buddy with the number one cheater in sports who went to jail for it?
Yeah, because you're talking. Because he had 134. The rest of them had like what you said, 50 something, 56 was the second most. So he was contacting him basically 3 times as much as any other referee in the sport, in the midst of the biggest scandal in probably NBA history. Honestly, I don't think there's one that has stained the reputation of the NBA quite nearly as much as the Tim Donaghy scandal. Part of the reason why the Kings didn't make the finals that year in 2002, and all the other ones he's rigged in the past.
Yeah, Chris Paul has not won a elimination game either that Scott Foster has refed. And then
And I think
there's
I've heard.
a infamous Warriors game where like Chris Paul got ejected because of a technical foul.
I know that I believe Chris Paul has not won a playoff game when Scott Foster is refereed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's got a heinous record with Steve. I'll look it up, but it's basic. Yeah, I believe he's winless.
Yeah. But like I feel like the fact that he's that much in contact with it, like when you ask like people are like, well, since there's not like conclusive evidence, like, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. It's like say a country was gonna develop a nuclear weapon and then someone was going to stop them, and then when they did stop them, that person suddenly died, and then the program immediately continued. Like it's like circumstantial. You can't actually prove they did it, but there's enough circumstantial evidence where certain things start happening after you're like, well, I don't think it's just a coincidence. Like I'm not like a huge believer like, oh yeah, it's just coincidence that happened, when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar business and he's probably making money off of it.
Oh, he definitely is. Okay, I got the playoff records in front of me for Chris Paul. So Chris Paul, outside of a Scott Foster game, has he's 73-56 when it's not officiated by Scott Foster. So ultimately, that breaks down
Pretty
to
good.
like Yeah, I'm sorry, 70 and 54 when he's not there. So 56% winning percentage, which is like, okay, he's making playoff rounds. He's made, he goes deep in the playoffs. When Scott Foster is refereeing, he is 2-17, which includes a 13 game losing streak in the postseason when Scott Foster referees them. Also the one that he
Did
has the biggest beef with.
did Scott Foster ref game 5 of the Rockets and Clippers series? Can we find that? Like, I'm really curious to know that because I remember the Rockets being down 3-1. James Harden goes to the bench, and then suddenly I look up, and then Josh Smith and Corey Brewer, of all people, are going crazy. Like, I feel like, Scott Foster could be behind that epic 3-1 collapse for the Clippers as well.
You
Maybe
said
he's
this
just a big
was
Lakers fans.
was
Game
it
5 of the Rockets and Clippers.
I'm looking it up right now. It looks like he did. From what I see here, it looks like he was a part of that game. So,
Huh, interesting. If it was Tony Brothers, I feel like we'd have a completely different series and we actually would have gotten that Warriors Clippers matchup that everyone wanted to see, you know?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, the fact that Chris Paul, I mean, maybe there's something there, but the fact that 56% is his winning percentage in the playoffs, and Scott Foster, he was winning 2 out of 19 games. Like, that is despicable. 13 consecutive games. Keep in mind that Chris Paul has also played with the James Harden Rockets, which was outside of the Warriors, like the best team in all of basketball. Maybe the Cavs can be put in there too. And then he has the Clippers team, which I know looking back, the Clippers are aged poorly, but that team was still a good team when it was happening and all that. And then he had the Suns as well, the Suns team that made the finals. Like he's been on good teams,
Huh.
teams that make the
Did he
finals. Like,
did Scott Foster ref game 3 of the Milwaukee Bucks finals? Huh, I wonder when they're down 0-2 and then suddenly Giannis wins 4 games in a row.
yeah, it's a weird coincidence. I'll look it up if that's the case, but definitely suspicious to say the least.
There's no way that,
And
like,
he did referee Game 3 of the
oh,
2021 Finals.
oh, I'm a genius. I go to the 2 most pivotal meltdowns in Chris Paul's career, and you know who started it? Scott Foster. You heard it here
Everything.
first on the Brickyard. That's why we're the best show on the internet, because we give you breakdowns like that. You're not going to see First Take go through his records during elimination games. You think First Take is going to give you that? You think that something like First Take First is going to have the balls to give you what Scott Foster has done to participate in ruining the NBA? No, but if you want a real show, you're going to get that here. And you want to talk about a real city, Memphis. Memphis started the NBA offseason already. Well, we're in the NBA finals. So Desmond Bain gets traded to the Magic for Contavious Caldwell Pope. And I believe uh, Cole, Cole Anthony, um, the guard on their team. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I do know who this guy is. He's a modern day DJ Augustine. But they start a trade there. So now everyone's kind of speculating that John Morant is going to get traded now. But before we go into that, kind of the deeper implications of this trade, what are your thoughts on Desmond Bain on the Magic and just overall this trade?
I like it a lot. I feel like Desmond Bain is super underrated when it comes to the Grizzlies. He's been playing on a middling team for the last couple of years, but quietly he's been one of the better players in the NBA. And the Magic, I mean, they give up KCP, which I think is a replaceable guy, Cole Anthony, which didn't seem like it was working out for them. And then ultimately the Grizzlies end up getting 4 first-round picks for him. Maybe that's a little steep, but first-round picks, if you're good, don't matter that much. So ultimately, they get a player that I think makes the Magic better overnight. They can replace KCP in free agency, and then again, like they have a guy. Ultimately, they're replacing Cole Anthony for Desmond Bain, which I would take all the time. Desmond Bain, good defender. So I like this a lot for the Magic, and then the Grizzlies. Like if they're rebuilding, they get 4 first-round picks, and they get a pick swap as well. Like I like this for both teams. I'm curious if the Grizzlies are going to blow it up now. Like you mentioned, maybe Jaws next, or maybe a team like Jaren Jackson's on the move. I can see a team like potentially the Suns trying to get him, or the Lakers as teams that could be interested in Jaren Jackson's services. But interested to see where the Grizzlies go from here.
Yeah, because for the Grizzlies, I think they need more defense on ball, but they need more depth and scoring. Where Desmond Bain is a really good player, but not for the Grizzlies. And why I say that is because Desmond Bain can be a three. On a really good playoff team, and he can be a four on a championship team, but there's just some inconsistency issues. But his game reminds me a lot of Eric Gordon, and I do think he's going to be a really good player. The problem with Desmond Bain is John Morant gets hurt a lot, and when the playoffs hit in the NBA,
Same thing.
Jaren Jackson Jr., what I was gonna say, thinks he's playing in Taiwan, starts playing Chinese. Ni hao, where did you go, Jaren Jackson Jr.? We don't know because he disappeared versus the Thunder, and in every other playoff series the Thunder have had. So I think they're kind of looking at it like, well, Desmond Bain isn't good enough, so we might as well maximize our return from him. Go out there, get someone like KCP. We add another guard who can run the show on our bench, and then we're going to weigh out what we can get for Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. But I like this a lot for the Magic because Franz Wagner plays his butt off, and I think Franz Wagner is still getting better. He can definitely add some muscle, and the Magic were very injured when they played the Boston Celtics last year, and I think the Magic will be a better team than the New York Knicks because when they were healthy in the playoffs 2 years ago, don't forget they pushed the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games and almost won that series. Paulo proved versus the Celtics he is a legitimate one in this league and going to be a superstar. Franz Wagner is a big guard, which I love a lot, and they literally just needed someone who could do anything at all. And Desmond Bain isn't going to be asked to carry the load as much in Orlando, so I do think this is going to be a good trade and work out for both teams because, like, I don't know, for first round picks, like we're kind of just throwing around first round picks, like they don't mean anything at all anymore. And like if you're not going to be like missing the playoffs, they really don't. So I'm kind of like glad that teams are looking at the Rams playbook. Like, yeah, why do we want a first round pick? Like, we don't need it. Knicks did the same thing for
Mikal Bridges.
um yeah, Mikal Bridges. They got another round further. So if this takes the Magic to a second round, I think they could at least make the second round next year.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think they're a fun team. And ultimately, like, if you look at the basically, if you're not in the lottery, you're not going to be like, you're going to be relying on basically role players where you can ultimately just fill those needs in free agency, most likely. So I don't think first round picks are as valuable as many people think. Um, so, the Grizzlies, they'll have assets if they want to go and acquire some more players, or if they want to ultimately rebuild, they'll be able to get probably at least 5 first round picks for John Morant. And then if they want to get Jaren Jackson off their books, then ultimately they can go into a full rebuild and have a shit ton of picks that they can use over the next few years to build a real team.
Yeah, and then now players are starting to speculate, or Stephen A is starting to speculate that players think Memphis is too dangerous to play in, and then John Morant goes back at him to state your source. Why are you making up stuff? And then allegedly Jimmy Butler was the one who said this. But do you believe that players are too scared to play in Memphis, or is this just Stephen A capping out of his ass again while playing solitaire during the NBA Finals?
No, nobody gives a fuck about Memphis like that. Like nobody's scared. You think that people who play in Atlanta or they play in all these other great cities that we
Chicago.
have, Chicago, yeah, another city that's high in crime. Like, do you think that these people are scared of fucking? I'm sorry, but just for context, right? Phoenix, I wouldn't say is a high crime city, but there's enough crime there that I can maybe mention Phoenix. If I am walking down the street and I am a criminal and I see somebody who is 6'7" and buff coming at me, guess what I'm doing? I'm not fucking with them. And the shortest player in the NBA is like what, 6 foot tall and 1% muscle or 1% fat. Nobody's scared to face anybody in Memphis. And then I look through like Houston. Houston has crime. New Orleans, like Portland has a high
Yeah.
crime city as well. Atlanta, like there's other cities besides Memphis that people would be scared to go to. So no, I think that's a little bullshit. Memphis is fine. It's if anything, Memphis is just dirty. It's not like scary. And then all these players that they're going to be who are going to be dealing with this are traveling on luxury buses and are fucking
Yeah.
6'10". They're 6'10" and fucking 5% body fat. Nobody wants to fuck with you anyways.
And you can
Ultimately.
have armed guards at your house. And like John Morant is the one that's like, what are you talking about? And John Morant's home got robbed for $1 million. And John Morant's like,
Yes.
no, no one is saying this. And then also, if you're an NBA player, like you can afford to live where it's safe. And then you can also afford to have security around you. Like you know how hard it is to run into an NBA player in real life? Like it's pretty hard, especially in Memphis. Like if Steve and I said people don't want to play in Memphis because they think the Grizzlies should be in Nashville because it'd be a way more marketable city, way more fun place for the team to be. And Memphis is a smaller city when all there really is to do there is the Bass Pro Shops pyramid. So like maybe NBA players don't want to go to the Bass Pro Shops pyramid 5 times a year. But you know, that would have been a much better argument than mentioning Memphis. And Memphis, like, they do have they have a pretty high homicide rate. It's 237% higher than the national average. And then I looked it up, and they are also the least safe city for pedestrians, where there's like 13 out of every 100,000 pedestrians get hit in a year on average, just from poor road design.
Yeah, I mean that's probably true, but at the same time, these guys are flying. They're taking buses. They're in team trains. They're in hotels. Like they're fine. They're gonna be okay to be in Memphis ultimately. So I'm
Yeah,
not concerned.
like yeah, it seems like just such a cap thing to say. And like John Morant called
Clickbait.
him out on it. And I'm glad. Like state your source. What Jalen Brown said. But that is pretty much everything in the NBA. But let's do you want to get out the WNBA news out of the way first or go through the NFL?
I don't know what WNBA news we have, but if we want to cover that, we can talk about that briefly.
All right, so there's some pretty funny fights that I want to go over this weekend. So I had a rant on this show, and like, if you want to make the WNBA interesting, you need to add violence, you need to add fighting, and then what happened the other night? Well, we got a game in the WNBA where there was 3 ejections and a couple technical fouls and a couple flagrant fouls where Caitlin Clark got shoved, and then it started a huge brawl, and then the person who shoved Caitlin Clark ended up getting hammered on the other end. And now we're starting to see some chippiness in the WNBA, and it's being marketed. So if you're on TV and you're a broadcaster, you shouldn't be like, the WNBA needs to get this under control. It's like, no, you need to amp this up. You need the biggest and baddest players now on the Indiana Fever to just go out there and then start swinging as soon as someone touches Caitlin Clark, because when Caitlin Clark is there, your ratings go up 90%. When she's not there, they drop 90%. It's literally like investing in cryptocurrency. And that is Caitlin Clark. And she's pretty much drives the WNBA where it can go sky high. You can start getting some returns, or you can drop all the way down 90%, but you just have to time it right. And with the WNBA, now we're starting to see some fights, and then we actually had a brawl the other night. So I like seeing the chippiness. I think if you're going to market this league, you have to market it as the tougher, kind of stronger league where they just get in fights and then you allow it to go to the next level. Like, I think you should let them draw blood.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like a lot of people complain about the modern NBA because everyone's just shooting threes and it's not as physical unless it's the playoffs. A lot of people are complaining about the modern NBA being softer. So why not an alternative to that that isn't like, like the NFL has like the UFL and the fucking AFL that sucks. Instead, just have the WNBA, which has stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Cameron Brink and all these other stars that are emerging in the WNBA. But instead, you make this like the physical NBA now, and it's a bunch of women that are fucking badass that are doing their thing in the NBA, WNBA, and making it like essentially trying to replicate the '90s basketball that everyone hypes up, that everyone begs that they miss so much. Then go and watch the WNBA. Watch what is reminiscent of that time. People are scrappy. There's some hard fouls. There might be some bruises, some blood on the floor, but ultimately, you get what you want. Like you get that old NBA style that you desperately miss from the NBA. So I think it's fine to do that. Obviously, like player safety is important, but at the same time, like if this is what's going to draw ratings, and I think that it's important. Like we have Caitlin Clark, we have a bunch of other stars that are people are starting to know their household names. Now is the time to catch lightning in a bottle now before it goes because that can go pretty quick.
Amen. So WNBA clearly listens to the Brickyard. They listen to me. I will. You can take me on as a consultant, but you have to pay me a lot because I am busy building the best sports show on the internet right now. So it's going to be a top dollar to get me WNBA. We had two other fights happen. One in the other basketball G League. Ice Cube, who tried to recruit Caitlin Clark, has the big three. Opening day, we have none other than Dwight Howard and Lance Stevenson getting into a fight, and it ends up spilling into the stands. And it was so funny because like your typical like Jason Whitlocks and like kind of Karens went out there and like this is drill culture and hip hop spilling into the big three. And like, no, honestly, it's hilarious because if I was in the stands and then suddenly Lance Stevenson and Dwight Howard came crashing into me, like, oh, we're starting a mosh pit right now. Like, this is great for a sport and it's great for a league. Like, if you want to promote a subpar basketball league, like, make it interesting.
No, it's honestly like what you're telling me about Lance Stevenson and Dwight Howard. It feels like something I would see on like TMZ. Ultimately, like, oh, charity basketball game, Dwight Howard and Lance Stevenson call it out. And they basically have like the malice in the palace, but for old washed NBA players. I'm here for it ultimately. I didn't even know Dwight Howard was in the big three. I didn't know the big three still existed. And Lance Stevenson, I was curious I haven't seen Lance Stevenson since he blew in LeBron's ear however many years ago at this point. So it's, or actually maybe the Lakers in 2020. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is where he is now. He's playing in the big three and he's getting into brawls with Dwight Howard. And honestly, that sounds like that might as well just be a boxing match. Where's Le'Veon Bell? Where's Adrian Peterson? I'd rather
Yeah.
see Lance Stevenson and Dwight Howard duke it out.
Yeah, shout out Lance Stevenson, Dwight Howard, huge. I just wanted to mention that. And then our last fight this week, DeMarcus Cousins has been playing in Taiwan, with our Asian brother in there, and he decided to cup his balls, pulling the old Don Lemon at CNN, where Don Lemon used to reach into his pants, grab his balls, and say, "Does this smell up to par to you?" Well, he decided to grab his balls, put it in a hand in the face of someone in the stands, and then he ended up getting suspended in Taiwan, which I think is a pretty big accomplishment. Do you have DeMarcus Cousins walk up to you just like this? Oh, no.
I would probably vomit to be honest. Because like the thing is that the people aren't thinking about is like Demarcus Cousins is like what 6'11", 6'10", and he's a big boy. Like he
Thick.
was a big boy. He's like what 300 pounds, and he's been running up and down the court for the last 30 minutes. That probably smelled fucking disgusting. Like that probably was fucking rancid. That guy probably lost nose hairs coming out of his nose at this point, having to smell that man's sweaty balls. So honestly, I don't know what I think his repercussions was. He got like suspended or something. That's valid
Yeah.
because honestly, like that could probably kill a small child. To be honest,
Yeah, and most like Asian men are like small children at the end of the
exactly.
day. And also like what if DeMarcus Cousins is uncircumcised and he went in there, grabbed some cheese, and then
All right, all right,
no
all
good.
right. Now we're getting gross.
Oh, he can't handle gross out humor. Come on, man.
Nastiness.
But on that note, the dick cheese of the NFL, the NFC South, is here, and we're going to be predicting every single game from the NFC South. And this should be an interesting division this year. So if you're not familiar with how we do it on the show, one of us will pick for two of the teams each year, and then we will post our records preseason so you can see how we did and check back in with us. So you're going to be doing the Panthers and the Falcons. I have the privilege of previewing the Saints and the also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But who should we start with? Should we go with the Falcons, or would you like to be optimistic and start with the Panthers?
Honestly, I think we should start with the Saints because I think everyone in the NFL is well aware what the Saints are going to be this year, and this one's going to be really easy to go through. I feel.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the Saints. So We always start out with a little bit of an introduction, how we both feel about the team. So to start out, how do you feel about the Saints?
Oh my god. The Saints are going to be so bad. Cuz the thing that like their quarterback right now is Tyler Shaw, who who is Tyler Shaw exactly? I understand that I don't follow college like everyone else, but this man is from Louisville and I don't trust it. Second round pick. I don't think he's going to pan out. Alvin Kamara is getting older. Chris Olave, he can't stay healthy. And then like now we're relying on Rashid Shaheed and Brandon Cooks, who might not even be on the roster opening day. And then everybody else that's on the defense is a fossil at this point. So it's like, will Cam Jordan even be on this team at this point? This team is ancient. They should suck. They will suck. So I think they're going to be vying for that number one overall pick.
Cam Jordan to the Rams. I'm calling it right now. And then I think this team is kind of trying to repeat history. I think we have the Colts and we have the Saints who are both vying to bring another Manning onto their team. I think you're going to be having the Saints going after Arch Manning, especially with Archie Manning being the first Manning to be with the Saints, one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL. But just never had the team there. So I think history will repeat itself, and the Saints are going to be vying for Arch Manning here if he does decide to go, in fact, one and done.
All right, well, let's get started. They get the privilege of hoisting the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday, September 7th.
Yeah, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could potentially have a big game in that one, but yeah, give me the Cardinals in that one. I just don't. Even though the Cardinals don't have heart, I will take the Saints.
All right. Then we have Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Brock Purdy, recently paid. They hoist San Francisco.
Yeah, another loss there. We're going to 0-2 versus the 49ers. Need I explain myself? No.
No. And then staying in the NFC West, they go to Seattle to take on Sam Dangerous in the Seahawks.
Give me the Saints in that one. Weirder things have happened in September. And I think Sam Darnold is finally going to be turning into Sam Darnold in that one where he doesn't have Kevin O'Connell to hold his hand. And then, I don't know, he doesn't have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones to back him up. So
Those are
give me the Saints in that one. I think they get a W somewhere.
all right. They got to get a win somewhere. I don't think they're bad enough to go winless, so get them a win early because then their schedule gets a little tougher. They go to Buffalo to take on the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, give me Buffalo in that one, and that's coming from someone who is pretty realistic on Buffalo.
Pretty harsh on Buffalo. Uh, and then we go to October. We take on the Giants, and maybe this is Jameis, maybe this is Mr. Tommy DeVito, or maybe this is Jameis. We don't know.
I will take the Giants in that one because I think the Giants, while their offense will still be sus, I think their defense will be elite and could be a top 5 defense on paper.
All right. And then speaking of some teams that have improved, they will hoist the Patriots at 4 o'clock on week 6.
And the Patriots get the victory. Saints are now 1-5. That's a brutal gauntlet there.
And it gets worse because then they go to Chicago October 19th to take on Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I think the Bears get the W here. Now the Saints drop to 1-6.
And it gets uglier because then they get the first of their division in week 8. They take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they go and hoist the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And they're now at 1-7 because they lose that game.
And then they go to LA to take on the Rams.
Another loss. And I was generous with that Seattle win, mind you. I was being very generous. That's in Seattle. It's a tough place to play. I get Sam Darnold. That's the only reason why I picked them to beat them. But goddamn, realistically, they're 1-8. Maybe you flip the Cardinals game or something, but like realistically, they should be 0-9 right now if I wasn't so kind.
If there wasn't such heart behind that Baker Mayfield jersey, we would be seeing a winless team going through it. But their schedule gets a little bit easier the second half of the season. They start out going to Carolina to take on those pesky Panthers.
Yeah, and I think the Panthers will probably be getting some momentum, really figuring things out, and get the win.
All right. So Panthers are winning, and they are not looking good at this point. RIP. Kellen Moore, I believe, is the Saints coach now. Not looking good for him. Then the toughest matchup of all the teams they faced at this point, they face the bye week. Bye week can be really nasty to some teams.
I
I
think
think
they
they pull it out.
lose.
They lose the bye week.
No,
Oof.
we're on a skid. We're 1-9 right now. Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore. I mean, you want a coach to guarantee you're gonna have the number one pick. His name is Kellen Moore. He was a bad offensive coordinator in Dallas. He was a bad offensive coordinator in LA. And then he only had Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, the best offensive in the league. And Nick Sirianni, who'd already been to a Super Bowl. Okay.
Making me. So
So
then
now
they were.
they're
So they're 1-9 at this point.
1-9.
At this point, like it's looking pretty good that they might get Mr. Manning himself. Then another game, they hoist the Falcons and Michael Penix.
Another loss.
All right, so now things are not looking good for them. But then, they go to Miami to take on the Dolphins. This is in November, but it is in Miami.
Yeah, it's in Miami in November. Tua is probably gonna have his fifth concussion of the season then. So give me the Saints. I think they sneak up and beat the Dolphins because the Dolphins are terrible after September.
Yes, they are. And so they are now 2-12,
2-10.
2-10. I don't know math. Forgive me. And then they they stay in Florida. They go to Tampa Bay and they take on Baker Mayfield.
And the Bucks get the win, and they're 2-11.
And then they go and stay in division. They face the Panthers, hoisting the Carolina Panthers.
Give me the Panthers.
Panthers sweep the Saints. All right, we love to see it. And then this is a game that'll be interesting. It's December. They hoist what could be Justin Fields, what could be whoever the Jets throw at quarterback at that point, but Jets, Saints, and what we would call the Turd Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think enough Bible study will be enough for them to win this game here. So, in potentially an early candidate for worst game of the season, give me the Saints in the upset. I don't like the Jets at all. I fucking hate that team.
And then they go to Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Titans. If I remember, I believe you picked the Tennessee Titans to win that game last week.
Obviously. So now they're 3-13.
And then week 18, like it's a flex game. They're going to Atlanta. Atlanta maybe is fighting for a playoff opportunity at this point. We shall see. But week 18, they're 3-13. How do they shake?
Yeah, give me the Falcons in that one because that will actually have playoff ramifications. Because I think Atlanta will probably be competing to the end of the season with the Panthers and the Buccaneers. So that could be a close divisional race as well as a wild card race. So give me the Falcons in that game because the Saints already have too many wins at 3 wins here. So Saints finish out at 3-14.
I think that's fair, though. I mean, like, they're bad, but they still have Alvin Kamara. They still have Chris Olave. They have some decent players still, but at the same time, like, who's their quarterback? Who's their offensive line? Who's Kellen Moore at this point? Like, there's questions to be had there.
And
But
teams like no matter how bad they are, they do get wins in the NFL. So could they be 4-13? Yes. Could they be 5-12? Maybe. But I think between 3 to 5 wins is the range you're going to get with the Saints. But was I too harsh in the Saints in the comments if you're watching this video right now after the fact on YouTube on its own as a Saints fan just for the rage bait? Or do you want this team to suck this bad because you actually need to rebuild? So tell me if I'm crazy or spot on with your Saints or if you're just a casual NFL fan.
we love to see it. So now we move to the next divisional player. Do we start now going next? Do we go with the Panthers, Falcons, or do you want to tackle the Bucks while we're here?
Let's do the Birds.
Doing the Birds? Okay,
Yeah,
so we'll do the
Falcons.
Falcons. Okay.
So I got them pulled up here. So my early sentiments on the Falcons is I don't know. Like I think this team could be really good, could be really dominant. I think they made a lot of good moves, at least offensively in the draft, and I think their defense will be good this year. They went out there and focused on defense pretty much on everything in the draft, as far as getting pass rushers here, addressing the secondary help. Um, but are they going to be eye popping? Is my big question, or just another Miami type team?
Personally, I look at their team. I'm not super impressed with their receiver core. Like, I think Drake London's nice. I like him a lot. Bijan Robinson's great. But then we have like Kyle Pitts, who has not panned out in the NFL, and he might even be traded. There's rumor that he is. And then defensively, like, they have some nice players, but I feel like their pass rush is definitely their priority that they need to address because they had one of the worst pass rushes in all of the NFL last year. So honestly, like when I look at the Falcons, especially with my questions like, is Michael Penix the guy? Is he not? I feel like the Falcons are vying to have a similar season as last year, just being like middle of the pack, average, vying for a playoff spot at the end.
Yeah, bring back Jonnu Smith. That's what I have to say for the Atlanta Falcons. And we start out in week one at home, as you would say, hoisting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And I think with the Bucks, that they're probably going to split with them. I feel like they're going to split with them and the Panthers most likely, looking at them objectively. So week one, Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield's healthy, everybody's ready to go in Tampa. Give me Tampa to win that game.
Yeah, also like keep in mind Bucky Irving said he's not satisfied with that rookie year this year, so we're getting an even better Bucky Irving. So look out, Atlanta in the NFC South. And then after hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they go to Tampon Tim City in Minneapolis and face the Vikings with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I just feel like Vikings just have so much weapons. Like I like the secondary for the Falcons a lot, but at the same time, like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones, you have to
It's
stop
also
that.
Sunday
Good
night
luck.
football too.
Sunday Night Football, yeah. I'll take the Falcons. I want to say this is a game that the Falcons could win, but I'm going to take the Vikings to win this one.
Vikings. And then next week they go to Carolina to finish up their 2 game road trip.
And for the Falcons, like their schedule is going to get a lot tougher soon, so they have Carolina. Carolina's definitely a beatable team. I believe in Carolina a little bit more than the Falcons, but early on in the season, they're figuring things out. I'll take the Falcons to beat them on the road.
Okay. So you'll take the Falcons to win early, and now they are 2-1, um, or they're 1-2 right now. And then they host the Washington Commanders at home.
Yeah, and see, this is when it gets kind of tough. So it's early on in the season. Typically, these are when there's some surprise games that occur. On paper, I think the Commanders are a much better team, but given the fact that it's early on in the season, maybe they're figuring out how they implement Debo Samuel. I think I'll take the Falcons to upset the Falcons here, or upset the Commanders here.
All right, so Falcons upset themselves on the 28th of September of 2025. You heard it here first. And then they get the privilege of hosting the Buffalo Bills. And according to Vegas, the Bills are going undefeated this season. So there's definitely no shot that the Falcons could beat them at home, right?
Not on Monday Night Football. I'll give credit to Josh Allen. He does well in prime time, so I will take them to lose to Buffalo and Josh Allen.
Oh, is this one of these dumb, like, 2 Monday Night Football games? God damn it. I thought we stopped this. All right, so now we're two
I
and
thought that
three.
life was over.
And then they go on the road to San Francisco. And this is also at night. This is Sunday night football.
Yeah, and I just feel like San Francisco, if they're fully healthy, like they're going to be an engine. And you're facing two teams that are vying for being Super Bowl contenders. So I'll take the 49ers to win that game.
All right. So yeah, a lot of prime time early on for Atlanta, which is surprising for me. And then the week after, get a little bit of a break. You get to host Miami.
Yeah, and this is where I think they get their win. They've had a couple of tough games. You face the Commanders, Buffalo, and San Fran all in a row. Then you go and take Miami. You are going to Miami. It's going to be a little bit warmer. So I think this is a game that the Falcons can win. So I'll take them to beat the Miami Dolphins.
And then you have a brutal game to start November. You're on the road in New England.
Yeah, and just like there's just certain teams that are just in the heads of others. You're never going to be able to escape 28-3. I understand there's been games since then that they've faced each other, but like you have like one of the most iconic games ever that are forever going to be cemented as your legacy. Patriots just have the edge in that regard. Just the fact that they're in their head already. I'm taking the Patriots to beat the Falcons.
All right. And then you go on the road again, another little 2-game road trip. Oh, this is actually in London. You play the Colts.
London game. Okay.
London
At
game.
this point, they're what, 4-4?
3-5.
Okay. London games are weird. They're 3-5. Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, I can see them winning this. It's overseas. They beat the Colts. Colts, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. I'll take a guy that can complete more than half their passes. So I'll look at the Colts.
All right. And then they don't even get a bye. They have to come right back to Atlanta to play the Panthers here. So that's a tough turnaround. You go from London back to the East Coast. So
Yeah, and honestly, I believe I had the Panthers winning in game week 3, but coming back from London, having that jet lag, give me the Panther. I'm going to take the Panthers to beat them at this point. I think Panthers get momentum at the second half.
all right, but you're 4-6 now, but your schedule does lighten up here. You get the privilege of playing the New Orleans Saints, and we lost Brick here. So yeah. So what do you think so far of what we picked? Looks like his internet went out again here, but we're still in the middle of this. So far the Falcons are 4-6, and I think it's interesting, and it's an accurate record for this team because we'll go over their record to end the year, and it's kind of gonna even out. But what do y'all think about the Carolina Panthers right now? What do you think of the Saints? I think this will be definitely a telling
Crazy that
stretch
the
if they can
Falcons were trying to
capitalize
silence
on
me
it
after
here.
that.
And then, sorry, too much truth was being spoken again about the Panthers. He's back. But I was just saying they had a tough start. They were 4-6, 10 games in, but the schedule does lighten up at the end of the season because the following week you get the privilege. What I was gonna say before you cut off was they get the privilege of playing the New Orleans Saints.
And they're going to beat the Saints both times. It's just, yeah, the Saints are terrible. We talked about it in the last breakdown, but yeah, they take care of the Saints and they move to 5-6.
All right. And then get your Bibles out because they're playing the Jets.
And the only way that the Jets win this game is if Jesus himself resurrects from the grave.
And this is
I will
Black
take the
Friday,
Falcons.
I
A
believe.
Black
It's
Friday
November
game?
30th. It's at 2 p.m. in Austin, so that has to be a Black Friday game.
Strange. Okay. I will take the Falcons to win that game.
All right. So we're 6-6 now. Division back in hand. Playoffs are back in hand. It's like the Brickyard almost called this. Crazy. And then they host the Atlanta Falcons, feeling good about themselves. Sam Dangerous. Who's it going to be? We don't know.
And the Falcons hoist the Falcons. That's crazy. I'm going to take
The
at this point.
Seahawks.
So they beat the Saints, they beat the Jets, and now they face the Seahawks. I like them to win this game. They're going to enter the Bucks game with momentum, so I have them beating the Seahawks. And I believe at this point they're winners of the last 3.
Yeah, and then they play the Bucks on Thursday Night Football. And remember how the last game went when they played the Bucks on Thursday Night Football with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, we had Hall of Fame Kirk Cousins that game. Something that shortly after, like Kirk Cousins, he literally gave out all of his Hall of Fame all in that one game, and it just juiced all of his powers. We might not never see Kirk Cousins the same again. We're gonna be in for a great game. At this point, there could be some playoff implications. The Falcons are hot, but if there's one guy I'm not going to bet against on Thursday Night Football, it's none other than Baker Mayfield. I'm taking the Bucks to win that game.
Okay, so the Bucks sweep the Falcons then, and they drop to 7-7. But don't worry, because you get to go to Glendale, Arizona with a mini bye.
Mini bye. Cardinals, they're fun offensively, but they have no defense. And by then, Bijan, Drake London, and maybe they traded Kyle Pitts for somebody actually good at tight end. I think this is going to be a close game, but I will take the Falcons.
All right, and now you're 8-7, and you host the Rams
Which
at
I think the
night.
Rams, yeah, primetime game, I'll take the Rams at this point. Rams are always hot by the time the playoffs come around.
All right, so now you're 8-8, and then to finish out the season, you have the New Orleans Saints.
If
And you're probably
you should win that game, but if you don't win that game, shame on you. This is if you lose because of that. Honestly, like with the Falcons, I'm seeing somewhere between 7-10 and 9-8 is my range. Maybe I was a little nice to them this time around, but I think 8-9 is probably where I put them. I feel like the Bucks are better, and I think the Panthers are going to be surprising to a lot of teams. So I like where that ranking is, but I think Falcons 7-10 to 9-8 is my range.
yeah, I think 9-8 is good because I did like what I saw from Michael Penix a lot, and Michael Penix last year proved that he could put up like yards and he could make some big throws on prime time. Like he looked very comfortable on Sunday Night Football. I believe it was versus the Eagles where he had an excellent game last year. So I do have faith in Michael Penix. He can put some spin on the football and he's very accurate. So if defensively they're good this year, I think 9-8 will be good for them. So congratulations, Falcons. We have you at 9-8 with a winning record. So now let's move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are your thoughts on them coming into the season?
Well, I'm looking at them. A lot of these players are still from that Super Bowl team. Um, Defensively, I think they're getting a lot older. However, when you have Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and I know they went out and drafted a wide receiver as well. They have good tight ends. Baker Mayfield has emerged as a top 10 level quarterback, and they still have a solid defense. I think the Bucks should be the favorites for this division. The only thing I fear is they are getting older, so I fear that injuries could be a concern come the end of the season. But overall, I think they should be a wagon.
Yeah, I think they'll be a wagon as well. And I think the important thing that they figured out last year, which they didn't have, was a run game. And I think we're going to see Bucky Irving turn into a legitimate one, the gas station this year. Seeing an article from him today just saying, I'm not satisfied with what I did in year one. I'm coming out here to go gangbusters this year. So let's hear the Bucks schedule, see what's going on.
All right, so I'll get this pulled up here. Keep in mind, Baker Mayfield last year, 40 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, went absolutely parabolic last year. We
MVP
start
level
off
season without the picks.
exactly. Week one, they go to Atlanta to take on the Falcons.
All right, and you had Atlanta winning that game, so I'll stick with it. Or you had the Bucks winning that game, so I'll stick with it for continuity.
All right. And then Monday Night Football week two, taking on the Texans
Where is it?
in Houston.
That's a tough one early on, but at this point, I'm leaning Texans. It's earlier in the year. Texans are coming off of like a lot of the momentum last season. So give me the Texans to win that game. I think it'll be a defensive battle, and the Texans will be able to slow them down enough.
All right. And then in attendance for week three, they are in East Rutherford. Jesus is Lord. Therefore, we have the New York Jesus Jets, and they are hoisting the Jets in this case.
Yes, the New York Christ is King Jets are in New York. So let me take the Bucks in that one because the Jets aren't going to win a lot of games this year in my crystal
Exactly.
ball.
And then week four, they take on the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. And they are hoisting the Eagles in this case.
Yeah, Bucks and Eagles is always a tough matchup, but Eagles are coming off the Super Bowl here. But give me the Bucks in this one. They've given the Eagles enough trouble. They've struggled with them, so I think there's going to be a hole they're going to try and break through. So give me Tampa. I think they'll be hungrier this stage.
All right. And then they go from the defending champs to going to Seattle to see ghosts with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield will not be seeing ghosts in this game, even though they're in the same draft. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're now 4-1 to start the year.
And they're looking great. They have the next two games get a little tough. They will be hoisting the San Francisco 49ers in week 6.
Yeah, and that's just a tough game where if the Niners are fully healthy, they're just a better team top to bottom. We've had a lot of wins start the year well, but give me the 49ers here.
All right. And then Monday Night Football, a team that they've had multiple collisions with in the postseason at this point, but they go to Detroit to take on the Roar in the Lions.
Yeah, give me the Lions in this one. Lions are kind of going to be pissed off about kind of everyone dragging them this year, how they played last season. I don't think they're going to fall off the way people think they are because keep in mind that their entire defense was hurt last season. And then we still have Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. So give me Detroit. Still love the Roar.
All right. So Roar is loud. Bucks, they had two tough games, but then, lucky for them, right before the bye, they go to New Orleans and take on the Saints.
Yeah, so they get a bye and get to play the Saints. So give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here to have a bye before they go into the bye.
So at this point, they're 5-3. They have the bye week in week 9, and then they hoist the New England Patriots in week 10.
The Brady Bowl. Give me the Patriots in that one.
Okay. Patriots get the win. Record at this point, I believe, is what, 5-4?
5-4. Yep.
All right. And then next couple of games kind of tough. They go to Buffalo to take on the Bills.
Go to Buffalo. I mean, you want to talk about character. You want to talk about being an alpha and not a simp. Well, Baker Mayfield is an alpha. Josh Allen is a simp. So if that's the battle here, give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to avenge their loss versus the Patriots. And Buffalo is not going undefeated, so a loss has to come somewhere.
And it's going to be against the Bucks in week 11, apparently. So this is going to drop the Bills to 10-1. Shocking.
10-1.
Who would have thought? Now they'll just be 16-1, going undefeated in the playoffs. Who would have thought? But nonetheless, they go from Buffalo to going to Los Angeles to take on Sean McVay and the Rams.
It's another tough one. But the Rams get hot at the end of the season. They probably made some trades, pulled some magic together. If Matthew Stafford is healthy, give me Devontae, Puka, and Matty.
All right. But then lucky for them, they have 2 consecutive bye weeks in week 13 and 14. They hoist the Arizona Cardinals.
Give me the Bucks there. So now they're 7-5.
And then they face the Saints again, but this time they don't even have to leave their couch. They can just stay at home because they're coming to them.
Yeah, chicken fried Saints is what I call that. So give me the Bucks in that one.
And then prime time Thursday night against the Atlanta Falcons in week 15. They're riding high after 2 bye weeks.
You had the Bucks winning that one.
I believe so.
So I'll
But
stick with that.
That's a game that could go either way, though. I could have the Falcons at 8-9. Bucks. I think that'll be a fun game. Prime time, defending it.
Yeah, so give me the Bucks in that one. They don't want a repeat of last year's Thursday night meltdown. So now they go from 6-5, now they're 9-5, which tracks.
All right, and then they end the season. They have 3 games. They go to Carolina to take on the Panthers.
To Carolina, give me the Panthers in that one. They usually split.
And then they go to Miami December in week 17.
Yeah, Miami is non-existent in the winter, and then they're not going to be able to shock them with the humidity like they do with other teams here. So give me Tampa in that one. They get 10 wins.
And then they end the season with the Carolina Panthers coming to Raymond James.
And that's probably for the division, and they win that.
All right, so they finish 11-6. It looks like
10-7.
10-7. All right.
Oh, I guess 11-6. Yeah, 11-6. I'm dumb. Which is a good year for the Bucks. I think they'll probably be more on the 10-7, but I think they're in the 9 to 11 win range here. So give me, yeah, I know. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers there. I think they still should win their division. I think they have a really solid run game, and that's really what improved last season. And then this is a team that has also drafted well the past few years, and I feel like they've gotten some underrated pickups in the draft, like Kate Otten, who's an absolute monster. Still have Mike Evans there. And they've drafted some receivers, and then we'll see if Josh Palmer can progress a little bit. But right now we have Bucks at 11-6, Falcons at 9-8, and the Saints are currently 3-14. And then there was one lonely team, the Carolina Panthers. What are we thinking for the Panthers this year?
So the Carolina Panthers, for me, they remind me a lot of the season prior to the Lions making the playoffs. They had a lot of heartbreak. But then at the end of the season, they started to have some wins. They beat the Saints. They beat the Giants. They went toe to toe with the Chiefs. They had an overtime loss against the Bucks. Went toe to toe with the Eagles. Beat the Cardinals in overtime, and then the Falcons they beat in overtime in Week 18. This is a team that on record last year they were 5-12, but it felt like at the second half of the season was when they started to get momentum. Bryce Young got his swagger back that we saw from college. And then they went and drafted a rookie eighth overall that was the highest wide receiver scouted, Tetra McMillan. So offensively, I think they should be better. And then defensively, I think that their defense should be middle of the pack. So I think they should be competitive.
All right. So we have the Panthers as being competitive this year, and I think they'll be good, but I think people are going overboard on them being like a dominant team this year. But I think it'll be exciting. And let's see what the schedule says on most of those people's notions, because usually they just base this off of feeling instead of schedule like we do. So week one, though, they play Rapunzel and the Jacksonville Jaguars and their fan in Trevor Bank.
Yeah, I'm going to take them to beat Jacksonville, honestly. I think this is the team that I think can start out hot and then maybe start to struggle in the second half of the season.
All right. And then they go to Arizona.
And I'm going to pick them to beat the Cardinals.
All right. So they beat the Cardinals there. And then you had them beating the Panthers in the following week, but they do go to Atlanta. So they start the season with 3 games on the road, 4 games on the road, actually.
Yes. So they at this point I had them beating the Falcons in week 3, I believe, right?
You had the Falcons winning that game.
Okay, so they're 2-1. They go to New England in September. Patriots, they're going to be an interesting team. I think defensively and coaching wise, I'm going to take the Patriots to win this game. I just feel like the Patriots are going to be able to overwhelm them. And I don't know. Dave Canales hasn't given me evidence that he could outcoach Mike Vrabel. So I'll take coaching advantage. I'll give the Patriots.
All right, so now they're 2-2. New England's a tough place to play too, so no shame there. And then they have their first home game of the season and face the Miami Dolphins.
So I feel like this is going to be a high scoring game. Could go either way. I feel like if the Panthers can play in that shootout, I feel like Dave Canales can properly plan to slow down the Dolphins. I do think this is a winnable game. Because it's early in the season, I'm going to give it to Miami, though.
You're gonna give it to Miami. All right, so now they are 2-3, and after that they host the revamped, new look Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, here we go. Dak Prescott, CeeDee
Pickens.
Lamb, George Pickens. I don't think their defense can handle those two guys. I just don't think their corners are good enough. I'll give some respect to the Cowboys, and I'll have them falling to the Cowboys.
All right, so now they're 2-4, but say a prayer because they go to New York and they play the Christ is King Jets.
Yes, the New York Jesus Jets. I don't think Jesus could save them. I don't think Mary could save them. And I don't think Judas could either. So therefore, I'm taking the Panthers to win.
All right, so now we move up to 3-4, but they go up and face the undefeated Buffalo Bills, according to Vegas.
And this is a juggernaut. 17-0. I mean, how many teams have
17
gone
and 0.
how many teams have gone 17-0? And
None.
especially, the craziest part, a team that's gone 17-0 but didn't make any moves in the offseason. That's special. You don't see that. Team that went 12 or 14-2 the year before. Pretty impressive. I'll say Buffalo wins this game though, because I think Josh Allen's going to be tough to defend for that defense.
All right. And then JC Horn, no stopping Josh Allen. And then you go to Green Bay to face Jordan Love and the Packers in Lambeau in November. Tough matchup.
Tough matchup for sure. Jordan, I believe in a thing called love. They have their new receiver. Packers are looking pretty good. I feel like tough stretch. I'll have the Packers beating them.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like the Packers are going to be like if Jordan Love is healthy for a full season, they're a Super Bowl team, in my opinion. And then so now they're 3-6, but the schedule starts to lighten. Well, it doesn't lighten up a bit. You get the Saints at least at home.
And that should be a win. That's when things start to turn around. I think these next few games, they might not win these games, but I think they'll play competitively.
Right, and then they go to Atlanta to face the Falcons.
And
Then you have them winning this one.
yes, I'll have them winning this game in this case at home. This is when I think their momentum starts to pick up.
All right, and then they get the 49ers in November, and this is a night game here. Looks like they have a bye. It's on the 24th here. But they face the 49ers in San Francisco. Will San Francisco have a team?
This is where I think I'm going to honestly take the upset here. I think it's late in the season. It's unexpected. Maybe the 49ers, I got to see who the 49ers were facing prior, but this is a game that I feel like the Panthers can win, especially if they start to get some momentum. Maybe they played competitively against Buffalo and Green Bay. They're feeling good. They've won some games. I'm going to take them to beat the Niners.
All right. And then they host the Rams the following week.
And what's their record by the time they face the Rams?
6-6.
Okay. This is when I think the Rams will get the best. I think the Rams are going to be a juggernaut. So I will pick the Rams to beat them.
All right. Now they drop to 6-7, but no worries. You get to go to New Orleans to play the Panthers.
Yes, and the
Or
Tyler
Saints.
Shaw led
The
Saints.
Panthers.
Yes, Saints, Jesus, God, doesn't matter. Panthers in 5. I'll take the Panthers to beat the Saints.
All right. And then after that, they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had the Bucks losing that game, so then they move to 8-7.
All
So
right,
now we have
sounds
a
good.
winning record. How about that?
Not bad.
And then they host Seattle
Yes, I'll take
in a
them to beat
TBD game.
Seattle. TBD game, I'll take them to beat Seattle. I think Seattle's going to be pretty bad this year.
And then they go to Tampa. I had Tampa winning that game, but it puts them at 9-8,
Yeah,
which I
I
think is
feel like
fair.
I think for them, 8 to 10 wins is no. Honestly, I think 7 to 9 wins is fair for them because I think the Panthers are exciting. I think Bryce Young took some leaps second half of last season. Their receiver, I think, is going to be the key. If their receiver, Tetra McMillan, the guy from Arizona, is as good as he looked, then I think that this team could be very exciting. But at the same time, their defense is not there yet. I just feel like there's a lot of players that we're betting on that we just don't know. We know JC Horn's good. We know Trevor Mooring's good. Derek Brown is good. But otherwise, like their defense has a lot of question marks. And I just don't think their offense is quite there yet to be good enough to compete yet.
Yeah, so that is the NFC South. So we had the Saints finishing last at 3-14, the Falcons and Panthers in a tie at 9-8, and then the Bucks winning the division at 11-6.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty fair. I think the Panthers will finish above the Falcons, but I think both of them are going to have pretty interchangeable records ultimately. But I like how that ranking breaks down.
Yeah, let me ask ChatGPT what they think the NFC South record is going to be this year, just to compare on how like off we are.
How smart we are.
So it has the Falcons at 10-7,
Okay, they're on crack.
the Tampa Bay Bucks at 10-7,
Okay.
The Panthers at 7-10,
All right.
and then it has the Saints at 4-13. So one game better than I thought it would be. So pretty
Okay.
kind of similar in some areas. I think they're a little bit down on the Panthers, going 7-10. Only 2 games apart though. One game off from my predictions though. So I'm literally one game difference from an AI predictor. How about that?
The smartest thing on earth, dare I say.
Yeah.
Marcus GBT. Trend that shit. But yeah, NFC. We talked about the AFC and NFC South these last 2 weeks. We'll continue diving into the rest of these divisions throughout these next few weeks as football season fast approaches ultimately.
Yeah, and then that leads us to one of the most anticipated segments on this show. I've watched and listened to a lot this week, but I will start with you. What have you been watching? What have you been listening to this week?
Well, what have I been watching? I have been watching Tires. I'm going to shout out Tires. There's a couple things. I was going to say Star Wars because I watched the Force. You know what? No, I'll pick Force Awakens actually. I watched The Force Awakens, which I know people are probably tired of me talking about Star Wars on this show. I'm actually probably tired of talking about it too, to be honest. But
It goes viral, so keep talking
I
about it.
I talked about The Force. I was always a defender of The Force Awakens because I felt like of the Disney Star Wars, it was the one that was like the most exciting. They did the most things right there. I rewatched it recently because I'm trying to rewatch the Disney ones. Are they as bad as they are? The Force Awakens, it's a popcorn and soda kind of movie. Like if you don't pay attention, if you're not a Star Wars fan and you're just going in there to watch a movie, it's a fine movie. It's good. Kylo Ren, all these other things. But if you're a Star Wars fan, that movie makes no fucking sense, to be honest, because you have 30 years of history that has gone by, and they just show up with the First Order, and it's the exact same plot line as A New Hope. They have this is now the third Star Killer machine that the Empire has created, and yet the same problem that has been for the last two Death Stars is the same problem with this Star Killer base, with the exact same one. So that was a plot hole there. Not only that, why is Luke Skywalker hiding away on this island? We don't know. Secondly, this fucking Oompa Loompa looking bitch is owning Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. And the way that they explain her to have it is a story for another time. Well, guess what? That story never comes. We never know why she had his lightsaber. We never understood why the Millennium Falcon is in this essentially Tatooine looking island or Tatooine looking planet. And the way they explain it, they don't. They don't explain anything at all. And then they don't explain how the First Order joins. And maybe like part of this has to do with like the Star Wars movies to come, the lack of explaining they did for everything, aka Palpatine returned, aka I'm the spy with General Hux. Like, regardless, this movie does not explain how we got to where we were at all. They don't explain anything, and they refuse to explain anything throughout the entire series. So this, I would just call mid. It was just a mid movie. It's the best of Disney, but that doesn't say much because Disney has done nothing to help Star Wars at all.
It's not the best for Disney. Rogue One is clearly. Like Rogue
I'm
One
talking
has a movie.
just the
It has
trilogies.
characters. Just the trilogies, yeah. Like it's the best out of the trilogies, but that's like say that's like not like an accomplishment at all because like my problem rewatching those movies is I don't like Finn and I don't like Rey. And also, how is Rey competing with Kylo Ren at the end of that movie? I realize the Force works in mysterious ways, but she literally just picked up a lightsaber. This guy is the son of Han Solo and Leia, and then he's been training with the Force literally since he was a toddler, and this dumb you know what comes along and then starts kicking his ass. I'm like, when I watch that movie, I'm like, this literally makes no sense how she can compete with him on any level, let alone draw blood, unless he just let his guard down. But like, that's stupid. And then who am I? The
That's
whole
Finn.
movie, what is Finn with the whole breathing thing? And then I'm supposed to believe that stormtroopers can't hit anything, but a janitor suddenly is a superior thing because he can think for himself. No, it doesn't make sense. And people are like, oh well, actually, when you like the movies, like it's just a sad step remake of A New Hope, and it's fine if you're a kid and you want to introduce them to Star Wars, but like as a Star Wars movie, like it's not good. And at least the prequels have like some elements that are so bad that it's good, but these movies are just like angrily like you just have so many plot holes that were overlooked that don't make sense. And my biggest issue with Star Wars is they've made maybe four good Star Wars movies, yet the world is so cool and there's so much good lore that they seemingly can't bring it onto the big screen just because with Disney, it's not a movie. It's a production and it's a business thing. We just need it to make $1 billion. Then we don't care what you do with the movie. We don't care about plot. We don't care about character. We don't even care about good writing. We just need it to make $1 billion. And I get fan service, like, we're all fans and we all want to be serviced, but like that can't be the whole movie.
And that's all the Force Awakens is. It's all fan service. Whether it's Han Solo in the movie, whether it's Leia, whether it's C-3PO's red arm, which I haven't got to. Although I want to talk about what you mentioned earlier with Rey just being the most overpowered Jedi out of nowhere. This fact that she hasn't had any training. All she's done has been fucking scratching fucking poles together to get for food on her shitty planet of Jakku. But overpowered. And then this is the one that kills me the most because it's such a small detail, but it's something for a Star Wars fan that drives me nuts. You see C-3PO after 30 years and he has this red arm and he goes, "You're probably wondering about my red arm." And then the next time you see him, he doesn't have a red arm anymore. And we're like, "Oh, why do you have a red arm?" They don't explain it. You know what you have to do? You have to read a fucking comic book to figure out the lore. And then the very next scene that you see C-3PO, he doesn't even have a red arm. So the whole red arm thing, it's like, what were you thinking through the entire time? You remade A New Hope. You made Rey this overpowered girl boss for no reason. And then C-3PO has an arm, but nobody explains why he has an arm. R2-D2 is in low power mode, but nobody explains why he's in low power mode. Luke Skywalker is on this remote planet, but nobody explains why he's there. Nothing is explained in this movie. They're just like, Star Wars is back. Tee-hee. Here's the Millennium Falcon. Here's Han Solo. But nothing else is explained. And then, you talked about Finn, how he just breathes too much. They had so much potential. A stormtrooper, getting into the complications of being a stormtrooper in this evil empire that is the First Order. But they just made it pathetic. And then the First Order, which is supposed to be the Empire, they end up making the First Order the bitchiest empire that you could have possibly imagined, where somehow a bunch of fucking rebel fleet fighters can shoot down this Star Killer base. They constantly get cucked, like movie after movie. Like, what were you thinking? Like this movie, I can't say this movie's bad. Like it's enjoyable, but it's just mid ultimately.
How did they take over though? If you're that like, I don't get like how the empire is so powerful yet they're able to take over. And then also the stupid rule of two. And then you have Snoke, who's built up in that movie. And then the biggest plot hole going back and watching A New Hope is, or this one's A New Hope. No,
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. Is watching Star Wars, going back and watching Star Wars: A New Sleep Apnea is just that they didn't decide who Rey was until the third movie, and you can tell that the writers didn't even know that watching that movie. It's like, so you introduce this all-powerful person that can just be anyone, and you don't even know like if she's a Skywalker, like where she gets her power from. She's just kind of this rando.
Yeah, and they clearly didn't know because you enter her and she's like waiting for her parents to come back. It's like, okay, is that Luke? Is that Palpatine? Is that Obi-Wan? Like, who the fuck is this right person? Because the whole franchise has been about the Skywalkers. Anakin, which becomes Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker and the continuation of his story. But the last time you see Star Wars in this chronological order was Return of the Jedi. They killed Darth Vader. There's peace. And then all of a sudden now there's not. But they don't explain why there isn't peace and what happened since then after they kill the Empire and everything's restored again. Like, just as far as like Star Wars, the movies themselves, critically, as like a film critic, I would say there's probably 3 movies that if you're not a Star Wars fan, you should see Empire, Return of the Jedi, and Revenge of the Sith. But and then if you want to put a New Hope in there, you can. But otherwise, like Star Wars is not known for like great filmmaking, great acting. Ultimately, I think it's the story of it that draws people in, and that's why the 6 movies respectfully are great as a cohesive project. But Disney goes in there and takes a giant shit on all of that and doesn't care. Just all about popcorn and fan service and ruin the franchise. Star Wars is not the same now.
Yeah, no, Star Wars isn't the same, and kind of like tarnish the name there. But yeah, you've been watching Star Wars this week, and then you can go over something else you've been watching or listening to as well if you have anything else on your mind.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching
But
Tires. I haven't finished it yet. Oh, sorry, I was breaking up a little bit there.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying I also watched I've watched half of Tires. I haven't finished it yet, but I got to the episode where his buddy, who was like this um entrepreneurial bro in the first season, comes back and is just
Yeah,
addicted to coke, and that whole episode he's just tweaking out. But yeah, Tires has been a lot of fun to watch.
yeah, no. Tires is definitely a funny show, and it's just one of those shows like it's like you go and you watch Steve Gervin, and I was at the premiere for this. Like he's the same person in real life, and they were on I think it was Seth Meyers, and he's like, so like Shane has his real name in the show, so like why do you have a different name? So he's like, well, I was gonna, I was gonna give him a new name, but then he's like, all right, what name was it gonna be? He's like, oh, I was just gonna call him Sean. And he's like, Sean?
Yeah,
It's like it's too close to Shane. You might as well still be Shane at that point. So Shane's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna be Shane. But like the way they talk about like Kyla, just like on shows, like the same. The guy who plays the like Greek guy, I'm blanking on his name. I think his last name is like Stamkos, but
yes,
just like the
the GM.
greasy general manager is really funny in that show. And like I never got bored watching it. And it was like 12 episodes. The first season kind of seemed like a accident with how popular it was, but I think this could be like one of the best modern day sitcoms of our time because like we haven't had anything that's just been up to par recently, and we all know why. Like you think back to like the 80s movies, like how did they come up with like we've been watching like just as our sleep show and like a random show to watch when we want to like a dinner show. We've been watching Home Improvement, but I'm just like, how do you have those old sitcoms who have like 30 episode seasons and they go on for like 8 to 10 seasons? And then you want to talk about the NBA, sports, music, and movies not being the same? Cocaine. That's the reason. After 9/11, the price of cocaine shot up, and that's when you see all the creativity start to go down. It's like we need more coke fueled writing sessions. I'm not a coke user myself, but when you're a writer for a movie, when you're a musician, when you're an athlete, like it clearly works. And I think like what the difference in movies today has been, the difference in music and sports, it's cocaine.
Just give him a little, give him a little dial of cocaine. And I mean, think about some of the movies that came out in the 80s, especially the horror movies. How
Con
the
Air.
fuck can you make, how can you make 13 Friday the 13th and fucking 7 Nightmare on Elm Streets and Hellraisers and all these other fucking movies that they released? How do you make so many of them with so many bizarre plots? How do you make the movie The Leprechaun and make 5 of them
Yeah.
without cocaine? Like, cocaine is the
Also, like
solution to
Stephen
that.
King is a like all he would do is write on like coke. He would like write like for 3 days straight, just sniffing coke. So,
Respect to Stephen King. It worked, clearly.
but yeah, I think that's been the difference. Like, how do you come up with like a plot for something like Con Air or like Face Off with Nicolas Cage? Like, I definitely think that's what we've been missing in modern media. So, make it great again. We need it. Bring it back to Hollywood.
Yes. And what have you been watching?
So I saw another movie in theaters this week. I went out and after the finals game on Friday night, for some reason this movie only had showtimes at like 10 o'clock. We ended up watching this at 11:15 and got out at 1:40. But I went there because it was a shark movie and watched Dangerous Animals. And what I will say is this is the role that Jai Courtney was born to play. It takes place in Australia, and it is about a serial killer who kidnaps people and feeds them to sharks.
Oh
It is
God.
one of the best movies I've seen all year, and it was legitimately a great horror movie. It captures like that 80s kind of like enough ridiculousness and enough levity, but like this movie has some legitimately disturbing moments. It has some like good gross out scenes where you cringe at it, and Jai Courtney is like no homo. He's kind of like adorable in this movie. He gets like jacked. He's like this eccentric villain. He goes on like so many monologues where he'll have like people tied up on his boat, and he's like, "Do you know why fishermen like to catch marlins the best? It's because marlins have a lot of fight." And then he's like talking with this girl who's like the main girl in the movie. And he's like, "You and I were loners, you know, we're sharks." And it's just like, if you like shark movies, even if you're just a fan of horror movies, this is like a great movie. He essentially, his thing is he will videotape people from his boat while he lowers them into the ocean, and then he'll film them like getting eaten by sharks, because most people like freak out. If you've ever watched Shark Week, if you splash in the water, it's going to be an indication for a shark to go out there and bite you. But like, this movie's so ridiculous and over the top, and is one of my favorite movies I've seen all year. It was one of the first movies I saw this year that I'm like, I need to go back and rewatch this, and it's definitely a movie I'll watch as soon as it hits streaming again.
Okay. Yeah. So it's shark movie where he's a serial killer. Looks like this is a more independent film too. So this looks like it won't have a
Mhm.
super long box office run, but it's gotten good
That's why I
reviews
only
so
had one
far.
Showtime.
Yeah, that checks out because it's gotten good reviews. It's gotten 84 on Rotten Tomatoes, and everyone's
What's the
liked it.
fan
Like
score?
the fan score is 90%.
See, there you go.
So like the fans like it a lot. It's gotten good reception. So I see that it is playing. All of these showings are late night showings too for me too. Seeing the earliest
Yeah,
showing is 10 p.m. So
that's the
um,
perfect time to see this movie. The-
yeah, this looks sick. I might check this out myself. But yeah, good movie. Dangerous animals. Check it out with who did you say the actor was? His name was
it's Jai Courtney, and a lot of
Jack
people
Horner.
don't like Jai Courtney. I know. I watch the Flick Pick for most of my movie stuff on YouTube. It's a good channel if you want something like solely movies. Like, he's like a Jai Courtney hater, but he liked him a lot in this movie because he's actually from Australia, and it's like a movie based in Australia. So it's a good time. I like it.
Yeah, I dig it. I'll have to check this out. I like Jack Courtney, at least from what I've seen of him. So I'm a fan.
But
But that is what we've been
one
watching.
more. I did have one more thing I want to shout out. I listened to Token's new album this week. He's like a smaller rapper. He's from Massachusetts, but he records actually with Knox in New Hampshire for most of his stuff. And if you like rap, like fast flows, like pretty like creative like styles, like it has a ton of hard hitting 808s. It has that fast like speed 'em Midwest chopper delivery, but he also has some like very good like emotional songs in this one, and he has some levity. And as far as like a white rapper, this is probably one of the best white rappers I've heard, and he's one of the only rappers I've heard that can go like probably bar for bar with Eminem. Like, some of the bars, even if he just has like a basic kind of flow in it, he'll like layer like some ridiculous triple entendres in this. Like, Duck Hunter, if you're just looking for like a banger, is like a really good song. And then he has like a song about his friend who's like trying to make it, and he's like following him around, but it's kind of like a deadbeat dad on it. Another song about like a girl who lied about him hitting her, and then she like pretended it wasn't a big deal. And then some good emotional songs about his dad as well. So you have like a good mix of just like hard hitting 808s and bangers. And if you're just a fan and like a bar nerd for like barology, he has like the fast flows. Like, if you're a fan of Tech Nine or some of Eminem's new stuff, or JID to a lesser extent. So I definitely think it's worth checking out. And he's definitely approaching like top five white rapper status, in my opinion. I think you have to put like Eminem there. I would put Yellow Wolf there. A lot of people would put like LP there, like MGK as well, like made a name for himself in rap as one of the most dominant white rappers. But like, he's definitely in the mix there. So I'd check it out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing some of the features he has. He has got Tara Reid on there, who I'm a big fan of. I've not heard or listened to any of Tokens before, but I'm definitely gonna check this album out at the gym tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good gym album. Like the first song is a little bit slow, but like some of the bass on this album hits really hard. If you haven't heard him before, this is a good album to start with. And then he actually does have a song with JID on his last album called Pink is Better,
Hmm.
who I know you're a fan of. And then he also did a song with Benny the Butcher.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I'll check him out. I'll see. I'm gonna listen to the first this new album first, um, and then kind of see from there what I want to listen to next.
Yeah, definitely a good gym album though. Like I was rocking it in the gym. It's an hour long, so it's definitely like a good treadmill album. And then some songs you definitely get that like
Get the pump in.
on it. You get the
Yeah.
pump in. It's a good gym one.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out. We'll see how I like it. Sweet. So yeah, Token, good person to shout out. Also from Salem, Massachusetts, for those listening in New England. So New England staple.
Yeah,
So
records in
got to
New Hampshire
rep
too.
the boys back home. Yeah. So that's dope. Been rapping since he was 6. It looks like. Sweet.
Yeah, no, he
If we
went on like Sway in the Morning. There's like a video of him like if you look up like his Sway in the Morning freestyles, that's where he got famous, and he was like 17 on Sway in the Morning. So like he popped off pretty early in high school.
Yeah, he's my age. Holy shit. I feel old for saying that. He's a 98 baby. Damn. That's cool. Good for Token. I've heard his name around, but I haven't checked out any of his stuff. I feel like I've probably heard him on a feature, but
Yeah.
I haven't checked out too much of his catalog at all.
Yeah, really the biggest complaint from people with him is like it's a little too like rapidy rap sometimes, which I'm fine with. Because I like fast rap and I like a lot of bars being layered over each other, and then just kind of the voice sounds a little pubescent, even though he's a little bit older now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll rock with it. But yeah, that's what we've been watching recently. Um, we're not usually a baseball show, so we don't need to talk about this unless if we want to. But
We can.
Rafael Devers has been traded. People are calling this the Luka Doncic of baseball trades. As you guys know, if you're a fan of the show, I am a big Red Sox fan, big baseball fan as well. Red Sox traded Rafi Devers and his entire contract over to the Giants for 2 pitchers, one pitcher whose ERA is in the 6, which is not good for baseball, a prospect that is 23 years old, and then 2 prospects that are essentially rookies, haven't played any minor league ball at all. And they get off of Rafi Devers. So, for context, because I know you're not a super big baseball fan, um, Rafael Devers has been the third baseman for the Red Sox since 2015. They signed him. He made the majors in 2015. He's been their third baseman, and he's always been a really good hitter. He's been an all-star. I think he's a 5-time all-star. The issue is that he's not a great fielder. The Red Sox last year were one of the worst fielding teams in baseball, and they were super mid. They're 81 and 81. Um, and so they wanted to address that by signing Alex Bregman to be their third baseman because he's a gold glove third baseman. Problem is that they don't tell him that necessarily, that they're going to have him um, be the third baseman or not. So they signed Bregman like in February. They go in spring training. They ask him to field ground balls for third base and first base, and he says no. Like, okay, that's kind of fucked up. And then they haven't played DH, so he takes off the glove, and he's just a designated hitter. Little pissed off about them signing Bregman, but it's all right. So then Bregman gets hurt, and they need a third baseman, and he tells him to kick rocks. And then first base is hurt because Tristan Casas literally dies on the field, basically. Tears his ACL. It's terrible. And
How
they're
do
like,
you
hey, you
tear
want to
your
play?
ACL in baseball?
I don't know exactly, but I know he fucked himself up bad. He's out for the entire. They had to like cart him off the field. It was rough. R.I.P. Tristan
Damn.
Casas. But he goes down at first base. They have a hole at first base that said, hey, Rafi Devers, how about you play first base? And he says basically the front office should do a better job constructing their roster. Fuck off, basically. So by then, lots of tensions with the Red Sox and Rafi Devers. Rafi Devers, by the way, they signed for 10 years, $350 million. So definitely not, missing meals or, scraping by. So he's doing fine. So tensions rise, and then a couple days ago they trade him, offload his contract for a couple of prospects. A lot of baseball fans are pissed off because the Red Sox got a dog shit return, and the management shortly after, who also owns Liverpool, signed somebody for that exact same amount of money that Rafael Devers was left on his contract. So people think that they offloaded this contract for them to sign a Liverpool guy for fucking soccer of all things. Who gives a fuck about soccer? So yeah, that's the Rafael Devers scenario. They're
And people
calling
are
it the
saying this is a Luka Doncic.
They're calling it a Luka Doncic trade because they got a dog shit. They basically just did not get the offer that they could have gotten. Rafael Devers is probably like top 10 hitter in the league, and they got a pitcher that's pitching like bottom of the league level bad, and then 3 prospects that are not even like top prospects ultimately. So they did not get the offer that they needed, but they got their contract offloaded, and Devers was being kind of a dickhead for them ultimately.
Yeah, and I get like Luca has encore antics there, but like seemed like he was pretty chill with the Mavericks. Maybe he didn't like them like publicly humiliating him, like him getting a beer taken away from him, but like Luca wasn't like you fuck off, you should trade me. He wasn't pulling like stuff like that, and it hasn't come out in the media. And the media likes to poke fun at Luca. They like to criticize him and drag him through the mud. It's kind of the Luca fat narrative, and I feel like Luka Doncic, like that was a little bit more out of nowhere. Where I feel like just what I'm hearing, like, is kind of a situation where both parties would have been better moving on. But maybe you get a better trade for it because I know they didn't get a good trade for who's the Mookie
Mookie
Betts.
Betts. Yeah, that
Yeah,
trade's fucking dog shit. If
do you think
anything
that
is
one's
the Luka.
worse?
Oh, yeah, the Mookie Betts one made no sense. Mookie Betts was like the second or third best player in baseball. It's like Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani maybe is better than him. Maybe Aaron Judge. But no, Mookie Betts they should have signed to the longest contract possible. But they didn't because they are a team that has endless money decided that they didn't want to pay this guy for whatever reason. Rafael Devers they did pay, and they had friction in the clubhouse. They had friction in behind the scenes with management. So this one to me was not surprising that they traded him. I just thought they'd get a better in return. This is not the Luka Doncic trade. Luka Doncic is a top 5 player in the league, arguably. Trading him out of nowhere, especially in a sport like the NBA, where just having someone like Luka Doncic on your team makes you automatically in the playoffs. Having Rafi Devers on your team does not make you instantly in the playoffs, as we've seen with the Red Sox, who haven't made the playoffs since like 2020. So this is not the same. I also think that like the Red Sox made the right move trading him too, because you have young players, you have um, this contract that now you can offshore and give that to some other avenues. So I honestly think this trade is getting overblown. Maybe it's the Red Sox fan to me, but I also don't think that they made the wrong choice trading his ass.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like maybe they're just trying to move on and get a deal done as quick as possible, just to get that kind of offload out the locker room. Because I don't know, do teams like tank in baseball? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I would say so. Like if you're sucking and it's the trade deadline, that's when they start to sell off some players. Especially if they're going to be free agents as well. He's not a free agent, but at the same time, like you're paying this man $35 million and he's just hitting for you. So it's just not worth it at that point. Be like paying someone in the NBA $40 million to just block shots, which is ultimately what they pay Rudy Gobert. But it's kind of like that scenario.
Interesting. Okay, well, we have it out there. So if you want to comment, let us know what you think about the Red Sox trades. What do you think of Rafael Devers getting traded? And then last quick thing, congratulations Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers for being the 17th team in NHL history to go back to back in their 100-year history. Tampa Bay did it 2021 in this century, and then also Pittsburgh did it in 16 and 17. But before that, you have to go all the way back to the 90s. So congrats to Tampa. Also, huge shout out Brad Marchand. So happy to
Yes.
see him win another Stanley Cup. I believe he was a puppy on the 2011 team when the
Mm-hmm.
Bruins won the NHL, but he has been one of the best scorers in the NHL over the past few years, at least statistically. And then just to see a guy who you've seen on your hometown team for so long just kind of put up with the BS going through so many managers, and then he gets traded to Carolina. Happy for Brad Marchand.
Yes, happy for Marshawn as well. He also was pivotal in them making the Stanley Cup. He scored, I believe it was 5 goals this Stanley Cup run. So he was just on an absolute tear. He was kind of like their leader ultimately. And he spent 16 years with the Bruins. Bruins were in the rebuild. And so ultimately, he's going to retire soon. You trade him there. This might be his last hurrah ultimately. Yeah, he spent the last half season with the Panthers, but he gets to end with a second ring, which now he gets to go off into the sunset if that's what he decides to do. So credit to Marchand and credit to the Panthers too, because they've been elite all this last decade.
Yeah, so he says he played 23 games, got 10 goals, 10 assists, and 20 points. He's a plus minus was plus 17.
Yeah, that's good. He killed it. So credit to Marchand, credit to the Panthers, and hopefully maybe they go for a three-peat. We'll see.
But this has been the Brickyard, and for the past 2 hours and 10 minutes, a tight 2 hours and 10 minutes, you have been in our yard. It was another spectacular show of the best sports show on the internet, and no other show would have given you a breakdown like that of Scott Foster. You're not going to get that anywhere else, so make sure you make sure you subscribe, so you boost us in the algorithm. But most importantly, until you see us next week,
Stay brick.
stay brick.